The sea night. Okay, this video is gonna show some folks that I've never seen this before, and I saw it the other day and I made a note of it, wanted to do a video study on it. And anyway, I'd never heard this word before, and when I looked it up, I found out so much. And it's what this is going to do. This is going to establish the calendar, the celestial calendar that we keep. This is also going to establish for the folks out there that are keeping Sunday worship based on uh, a few verses where it says on the first day of the week, when the Messiah rose, that's why they keep Sunday. So this is going to be important to share, get this out to other people that are questioning some of these verses that I'll be covering here. And this, knowing what a sea night is going to help establish that. So hang in here with me, and we'll try to get this done in a timely fashion. And I'm trying not to get off the beaten path here. So here we go. The sea night. Sea night basically means 7 nights. Okay. So we got here etymologically, it's period or space of 7 days and nights a week. That's archaic, means ancient, a contraction by late 14th century. So this was a contraction by late 14th century of late Old English, sephon not, itself from Old English, sephon nata, literally 7 nights. See, 7 plus night. So I'm going to look at 7 plus night, but keep in mind, sea night means 7 nights. Okay? Doesn't mean days, it means 7 nights. So 7, we look here, it says 1 more than 6. The cardinal number, which is 1 more than 6, a symbol representing this number. Old English sephon. So you see here's the connection here in the Old English. And keep in mind, Old English is what the original scriptures were written from, is Old English. Night, we have late Old English. That looks like night to me. Again, that would match up here. This says nida. Why it says night here, I'm really not sure, because it does say Old English. It could be a typographic error where this one either had an A added to it accidentally, or this one didn't have the A added to it accidentally. But anyway, late Old English night, the dark part of a day. The night as a unit of time and darkness. Thus, in Old English, combinations, night was the night before a certain day or feast day. Compare German Weihnachten, Christmas, literally Holy Night. So this was the night before Christmas. They called it Holy Night and Christmas. Of course, we know Christmas is pagan Roman. It's the mark of the beast, and this is one of the first things I came out of when I was coming out of Babylon, is coming out of the traditions of Christmas. So, but again, it's just giving you what a sea night was. It's literally talking about the night before the next day. In early times, the day was held to begin at sunset. So yeah, the Jews really got that messed up from what it was originally from, and that's probably where it kind of caught on from, because Rome, of course, Rome controls everything, and Rome eventually destroyed Judah, and then of course Constantine took a lot of what the ways they worshipped back in then and combined them with their 7-day week, and made worships in the days that wasn't told to be worshipped in. We have certain days to worship, and Constantine kind of blended the pagan and Christian beliefs together. So anyway, there's again, that's just another witness for sea night there. All right, so Old English Mona night means Monday night was the night before Monday, or what we would call Sunday night. Okay, so Seder night, Friday night, would be, remember, Seder night would be the day before or the night before Saturday, so that would be Friday night. The Greeks, by contrast, counted their days by mornings. So that's interesting because you look at the Hebrew, and that's what it looks like. The very end of the day was morning in the Hebrew, and we'll cover that here in a bit. All right, some more stuff on Sinai. This is 4 websites I pulled up. It's got what is the origin of Sinai. It says the archaic English noun Sinai means literally 7 nights. For example, a week. Okay. We have it here. It says a space of 7 nights, and then it says and days, which you would have to have the days in there to have that space of 7 nights. Etymology, Middle English from Old English, Sephon. There's that word again, nida, 7 nights. So it looks like the typographical area was in the slide below that, the etymology on night earlier. See night, we got here, we got a space of 7 nights and days a week. Archaic, anciently, the space of 7 nights and days a week. Again, we got a period of 7 nights here from Wiktionary. We got the archaic after a sea night has passed. Etymologies, Middle English, sea night contraction of, I can't read that, 7 night from Old English. There's that Sephanita, 7 nights. So basically 7 nights is what sea night mean. So we got 7 nights. And then one other website here, it says, in my readings of older material, I often see the word sea night, aka a week. Is it still used in British English like fortnight, 2 weeks, or is sea night now archaic? And of course it is. That's why I had never heard of it before. It's because it's archaic. It's not used anymore. The word sea night, in old construction meaning 7 nights. There again, 7 nights is now archaic according to the Oxford English Dictionary. So you wouldn't use it today unless you were writing historical fiction or drama. In the OEDs, the Oxford English Dictionary definition, it means a period of 7. It got days in parentheses, but it's actually a period of 7 nights a week. So a sea night is the same thing as a week. So keep in mind, it's 7 nights because it's actually got night in its name here. The term is derived from Old English words sephan, which is 7, and nida, which is nights, and it was originally written as 2 words. Some early forms recorded, I believe that's recorded in the Old English Dictionary, was in the 800s. Wow. So 7 nida right there, that's in Roman numerals in the 800s. So that's how far it goes back to the 800s. So very interesting. So now we kind of know what a sea night is. It's 7 nights. It's a period of 7 nights. So now we look at the Hebrew for 7, and then we look at night in the Hebrew, and then we look in the Greek 7, and then we'll look in the Greek for night here. So here we got Shabo, which is primitive cardinal number 7, also 7 times by implication a week. Then we have here in the Hebrew Lil or La'il, properly a twist away of the light, that is night. So I've shared this recently in some of my videos, and we're going to use this again later in one of the other slides here, but it's properly a twist away of the light, that is night. So so definitely in the Hebrew, it's we can come up with 7 nights. And go to the Greek here. We got Greek Strong's number 2033, hepta. It means it's a primary number, 7. And then we got for night, we have Greek Strong's number 3571, nukes. It is night, literally or figuratively. So in the sense that we're going to look at it tonight, we're going to look at it literally. All right, also, when you search the combination of a couple of Sabbaths here, one is H7676 and the other one is Hebrew Strong's number 7673, and you search it with day, which is Yom, which is Strong's number 3117, it comes up a combination of 52 times. So anytime there's Sabbath and day together in the same verse, it happens 52 times. And I'm talking about these two different Strong's numbers here with day here. Now, opposite of that, when you look at things that are not day, when you have these two Sabbath numbers here and you cross-reference them with the 3915, which is night, or you do the evening, which I think evening is I'm covering it here in this video, but it's I think it's H6915, and morning is H1242 Boker, and this is I believe this is I can't even think of it right now. But anyway, 5 times, and actually it's only 4 times where Sabbath is included. Never is Sabbath happen with a night. Never is there a Sabbath night. Ever a Sabbath night is mentioned in Scripture. Now there are 3 times that evening is described with Sabbath, and there's 3 times that morning is described with Sabbath. 2 of the times evening and morning are together with Sabbath, and we'll cover them in these verses down here. But if we look here for where we get the word sea night, when I was studying the other day, I was looking at this Strong's number, Sabbaton, which is basically also means the Sabbath. But by extension, what we're going to focus on is where this study is. By extension, a sea night. That is the interval between 2 Sabbaths. So keep that in mind. So that's the 7 nights between 2 Sabbaths. So right after the Sabbath day, you have a night that begins, and that's gonna be how you count those 7 Sabbaths, or those 7 nights between those 2 Sabbaths. And I'll have a graph here in a bit to show you that. When we cross-reference that Greek word 4521, Sabbaton, we got Shabuah right here. It means literally 7. That is a week. So that's the same word that we use when we count to the festival of Shavuot. That's part of Shavuot is basically singular, and then you put the uth on the end of it, and that makes more than one time that you have more than 1 week. So 2 weeks would be Shavuot. So that's in your count to the festival of harvest, or the festival of weeks, or in the Greek you call it Pentecost. Here's the verses. Now anything bracketed and lightly highlighted here, that means they didn't originally appear in the Scriptures. These were added in later. So this is the King James Version I'm sharing here. But these are, if you look, you compare all these verses to the interlinear Scriptures, you'll see that the interlinear is what shows you what was always originally in there, and then it brackets whatever is not in there. Now in the King James Version, if you see anything in italics, that means more than likely in the it didn't exist originally. It was a word that was added in later on. So, but here we go, Leviticus 23:32. So I'm not going to be reading the things in brackets. So if you want to slow down the video and check it out and read them yourself, you can. But here, I'm just going to read what's not bracketed. Leviticus 23:32. It unto you a Sabbath of rest, and ye shall afflict your souls in the 9th of the month at evening. From evening even unto even shall you celebrate your Sabbath. So So this is one time where you have 76, 76 and Sabbath and evening together. But this is just basically talking about when you begin your day of atonement. You started in the evening on the ninth, in the ninth of the month there. So Genesis 8:22. Now, this really doesn't have a Sabbath in here. It's this cease is this Strong's number 7673, which basically can be used as it's the first Sabbath, I believe, mentioned in Genesis 2:2, where it said Yahuwah took his rest after the 6 days of work that he did. So anyway, it says, reads here, while the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. So basically, that's not talking about a Sabbath. So day and night, this is really, instead of 5 times, it should only be 4, because this is really not talking about a Sabbath here. Then we got 2 Chronicles 31:3, and also the king's portion of his substance for the burnt offerings, for the morning and evening burnt offerings, and the burnt offerings for the Sabbaths, and for the new moons, and for the set feast, as written in the law of Yahuwah. So another thing real quickly, burnt offerings are prayers. So every time you see burnt offerings, that's a prayer that you're praying. Okay. 2 Chronicles 2:4, behold, and by the way, that was Sabbath was used. I forgot to highlight it right there. So Sabbath and morning and evening were together there. So, but again, it says morning and evening burnt offerings, and the burnt offerings for the Sabbath. So morning and evening are the morning's the last part of the night, and evening is the first part of the night. So Sabbath would always be during your day. So between morning and evening would be a day right there. Okay. 2 Chronicles 2:4, behold, I build a house to the name of Yahuwah, my Elohim, to dedicate to him, to burn before him sweet incense. Again, that's a prayer. And for the continual shew bread, and for the burnt offerings, morning, day, and evening on the Sabbath. So again, morning is part of night, the end of night, and evening is the beginning of night. So, and then you would have Sabbaths during the days, and on the new moons and on the solemn feast of Yahuwah, our Elohim, this forever to Israel. So we're to do these burn sweet incense forever. Okay. So anyway, as you can see, both these verses in 2 Chronicles are nearly identical in what they're saying. Then at Exodus 16:23, this is Yahuwah with them in the desert. This is the 2nd month after they came out of the desert, and he's speaking to them, or he's speaking to Moses, and he's telling Moses to tell them what to do. And he anyway, it's establishing how to count to your Sabbath and what to do, and it's about collecting the manna and not collecting more than you're supposed to. And the day before the Sabbath, you're supposed to collect your double portion. That way you're not exerting yourself as far as working in that way on the Sabbath. So we have Sabbath here, and we have morning here that are talked about. And let's read it here. Exodus 16:23. And he said unto them, this which Yahuwah hath said, tomorrow the rest of the holy Sabbath unto Yahuwah, bake which you will bake, and seethe that ye will seethe, and that which remaineth over lay up for you to be kept until the morning. So there's your 5 times where Sabbath is with evening and morning. Never is it with night, other than right here, this day and night here, but that's not even talking about a Sabbath there. So Sabbath, there's no Sabbath nights, and there's no Sabbath evenings, and there's no Sabbath mornings. There's only Sabbath days. 52 times there's Sabbath days. All right, Sabbath day equals 52 times. So again, we'll look at the Hebrew Strong's number 7676. It means the intermission. That is specifically the Sabbath. Okay, then we have it says intensive from 76, 73. So we look at 76, 73, and that's where in Genesis 2:2, where Yahuah took a rest after he worked those 6 days of creation. He put to repose, that is, desist from exertion. So that's what a Sabbath is. It's just basically to stop and not exert yourself anymore of what you do during the work week. Don't do any work that you do normally on your 6 days of work. Then Yom, a lot of people say Yom. It does say right there, it looks like the pronunciation would be Yom because it's got the U in it. I always say Yom. But H3117, what's it mean? And I've covered this previously in a video too. It means to be hot. So anytime that the sun's rays come above the horizon and shine on you, it immediately turns warm to you. And then as soon as the rays disappear after the end of the day and start of the evening, then you immediately stop feeling the heat of it. It cools off. So, and the coolest part of the of any 24-hour period is right before the sun appears at the very last point of the morning. So day means to be hot. It's when here it says a day as the warm hours, whether literally from sunrise to sunset, which that's mainly what it is, sunrise to set. And a few times the days in Scripture are from one sunset to the next. And what those days are is like Passover. You begin Passover in the evening, so you would go from sunset to the next sunset, which the next day would be Sabbath. And that's why you would keep Passover that evening, and then you'd go to sleep, and then you get up the next morning and celebrate Sabbath. So here we go to the next one. Now I've got a chart here I made. This is for the guys that keep a celestial calendar. You'll understand what I'm talking about here. But this is, basically Genesis 1:14 through 16. You can also look at, this is how we, Leviticus 23 verses 2 and 3. It's talking about the feast of Yahuah, and the Sabbath is a feast of Yahuah. It's when you feast on his word. And so every Sabbath, every new moon day, every festival is a feast day. So Leviticus 23, 2 and 3 are the appointed times, and in Genesis 1:14 says the lights are for the appointed times. And then of course we call it new moon day because that's month, and moon and month are, etymologically, historically, moon comes from month and month comes from moon. So they're both intertwined together. So new just means a fresh begin. A fresh beginning to your month. So that's what you get from that. I believe the Hebrew word is Kodesh. And anyway, I'll leave that up for y'all to research. But we keep a new moon day, then we have 6 days of work. So it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is your work week, and then your 7th day would be the Sabbath. So if you would count all Sabbaths, this is first day of the month, and then 8th day of the month would be a Sabbath. But you would get to the 7th day by first day of the week, 2nd day of the week, 3rd day, 4th of your work week, and this 7th day would be your Sabbath. And then again, you'd have 9, 10 through 15. So all Sabbaths happen on the 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th. If you go back and study Exodus 16, you'll see, and you'll have to use some Isaiah 28:10. You'll have to take some other verses to get there, but you can most definitely prove that all Sabbaths are on the 8th, 15th, 22nd, 29th of the month. But I'm not going to go too much further. Of course, when we get to the last Sabbath, that evening we start observing to see where the moon is, based on after the sun has disappeared, where it is, if it's above the horizon already or if it's below the horizon. But anyway, that'll tell you whether you're going to have a 30th moon. But again, I won't get off into that. That's something that you will learn over a period of time if you are searching to get into keeping the celestial calendar. That's what you can do there. But basically, just to show you, these yellows are day, these the dark blues are night. So day, night, day, night, day, night, day, night, day, night, day, night. So Genesis 1:5, just to give you the sequence, it answers our question in Genesis 1, and it says, and Elohim called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So that's day here, night here, and the evening and the morning were the first day. So he created light during this period of time, okay, right here. And then it became evening and morning. So evening would be right here, right after the sun set. That would be evening. And then morning would be right before the sun rises on the next day. So evening and morning are night time. So evening and morning cover the night. And I believe you're going to get it with this C night. It's going to really drive it home here. Genesis 1:8 again, and Elohim called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. So again, second day. So he separated the waters from above, from the waters below during the day, and then it became evening and morning, second day. So it completed a cycle there. So that's why it was all second day. Genesis 1:13, and the evening and the morning were the third day. I believe this was a day that he separated. He brought the land and separated dry earth from the water and such. And so again, he worked during that day, and then it became evening, and then it became morning, third day. And then Genesis 1:19, of course, this is when he made the lights above, that we see every night when we go out, and during the day we see that greater light that rules the day, which is the sun. Anyway, he made those light during the forest. So he worked doing that during the day, and then it became evening, and then it became morning. Okay. Genesis 1:23, and the evening and the morning were the fifth day. So this I believe was when he all the sea creatures and sky creatures, as far as the fish and the birds and such. And I believe that has some symbology more than just what's literal there. But I won't get off into that. But anyway, again, he did all that work on the fifth day, creating. He created them that during the day, and then it became evening there, and then it became morning. So evening and morning in this just means night, just like it says here. He called the light day and the darkness night. So anything twisting away from the light, which is evening and morning, they don't have the full light of the sun yet. And keep in mind, it said to be hot during the day. So evening and morning are cooler parts of the day. It's when that sun is above the horizon when it's hot. Let's see, Genesis 1:31. And Elohim saw everything that he had made, and behold, very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. So this is when he created the animals, and man was on the sixth day. So he would have created them during this period of time, and then it became evening, and then it became morning. Sixth day was completed. All right, this next slide, again, this is where night is. It's properly a twist away of the light. That is night. Now let's take a look at evening. Does evening belong to the night? Well, here in Strong's, we have H6150 Arab. That's the word I was looking for. I was fixing to say Eretz, and that's the earth, but Arab is for dusk, and basically that's a 9 there. So to tell you the truth, to me, I don't know. Hebrew, in a sense, is they changed the pronunciation of certain letters. That is actually an O sound to me, but I would say Arab would be what I would say. But anyway, dusk it has here, and then of course night. So evening has night, is part of night. Then we have Bakwar, which is H1242, means properly dawn, as the break of day, generally morning. So right here it doesn't say anything about night, but when you look at the Brown Driver Briggs You find here it says of end of night, of the end of night. So the morning is of the end of the night, plus it's of the beginning of the day. So in between the end of the night and the beginning of the day is Bokar. So it's also of the coming of the daylight. So that period of time where total darkness in, and you can see the rays of the sun. You can't see the sun itself, but you can see the light emitting from the sun. That's upcoming of the daylight. So that would be still part of the night, just based on our Genesis 1 witnesses, our 6 witnesses there. Also upcoming of sunrise. So that period of time right there is still part of the night. It would not be part of the day, because again, day means to be hot, and this morning is your coldest part of the day, of a 24-hour period, a whole cycle of a day. It's the coldest part, so that would not qualify for being a day at all. All right, now let's look at sea night. So keep in mind, sea night means 7 nights, and it said between the Sabbaths. So although New Moon Day is not a Sabbath, but just to kind of give you an idea, when New Moon Day is over, there's 7 nights until the Sabbath. So you would count 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights, 4 nights, 5 nights, 6 nights, 7 nights. And then your Sabbath would start that day. And then you would have 1 night here. So I shouldn't have put this here, but it is actually comes over here, and you would count it 1 night, 2 night, again, all the way to 7 nights. So that sea night would be 1 or first. That's what we're going to see here in a bit when we start looking at these verses. It's going to be 1 or first. So if you look up the Greek Strong's number for this, it'll be right here. Let's see, this first, where it says first right here. Look up that Greek Strong's number, and you'll see that it either means 1 or it means first. So out of the 7 nights, this would be number 1 here. This would be your second one. So number 1 is first, right? And then 2 is second, and then 3 is third. So with the nights being part that are the sea night, sea night would include this portion right here. This would be your first. It would be part of the nighttime. And what we're going to mainly look at, this is going to be these first 7. I think there's 9 verses altogether that I've found, and these are going to be mainly talking about during the 15th to the 16th portion of the calendar. It's going to be talking about the Messiah's at the tomb, and then getting up from the tomb and such. So here we go. Matthew 28:1. After then, Sabbath, as it began to grow light too, first of week, came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary, to see the sepulchre. So reason I highlighted this again, because of I want to keep this a little less than an hour maybe. I wanted to I went and looked up this word, and this word, where it means began to grow light to. So when it says what it said in that scripture in the King James Version, when I looked up that word, the definition means began to grow light to. So just like if you go out late night, and right before it starts in the morning period, it's when you see that light from the sun. Usually here where we live, it's about an hour between the time that you first see the light of the sun to when you actually see the sun above the horizon. So that would be that period of time of what you would call morning, but it means begin to grow light to. So what happened here, this would meant that they came the first of the Sinat. The first of the Sinat. So that's what that would be. First of Sinat. That week means Sinat as it's applied here. You keep in mind, in context, we got to look at the definitions of how they're used in context and what this is talking about. This is not, day is not there. Day is not even in the scriptures at all. It just says first of week. If it was day was there, then you would have to count this period of time, but you don't. It's a sea night. It's a sea night. So what you would do, this would have been time. So Mary and the other Mary came right about here, about that hour period of time, as it began to grow light to the day. It was about that 1 hour period, and you know there's a period of time where it's pretty dark there, even with the sun. You're seeing light from it over in the east. It's still, you really can't see a whole lot yet. And so that would be right here in Matthew 28, or actually it would be here. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong day. It would be right here. It would be between the night of the 15th and right before the day of the 16th. So it would be in that first sea night right there. It would be the number one sea night of that 7 nights of that sea night. It would be the number one or the first one. And we got Mark 16, 1 and 2. And when the Sabbath was past, okay, the Sabbath is past. This right here is past. This 15th Sabbath is past. Was Mary Magdalene and Mary of James and Salome had bought sweet spices that they might come and anoint him. So right after, on the 15th, they went after the Sabbath was over, because Sabbath does not run into evening and night and morning. It's over. When the sun sets, when it comes up, it begins, and when it sets, it ends. And so Mary and them would have went and bought their spices, because we're going to get the answer to why they bought the spices then in another verse that is cross-referenced with this. But anyway, that would be the period of time. So right after the Sabbath ended, when the sun set, they went and bought spices. And then the next verse, and very early in the morning, the first of the sea night, they came into the sepulchre at the rising of the sunlight. Again, it says the rising of the sun, but when you go look that up, the definition is sunlight. So yes, they were seeing light out in the distance in the east, but they were not getting the heat from the sun. It was that period of time before the sun appeared. So again, I'll leave that up to you to go. Don't trust me. Go search this verse out yourself and look up that Greek Strong's number. And I believe you'll see that it says sunlight, not sun. So the King James Version says sun. So that kind of throws you off, the rising of the sun. So what we got to do, guys, we got to look at a lot of the words here. So if something looks like it contradicts one verse to another, go look deeper into the words all throughout that verse, and you're going to find your answer. Scripture does not contradict itself. It edifies itself. It's a beautiful thing once you get in it and start digging deep. But it says, and very early in the morning. So that would have been right here at the end of the night, which is every morning is at the end of the night. It would be very early. So very early. So that would be probably at that about the beginning of the 1 hour before sunrise. Okay. And then it says Mark 16:9, which is 7 verses later. It says, now when Yahushua was risen early, first of the sea night, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene, out of whom he had cast 7 devils. So if y'all remember the story, and again, I'll just go into this real quickly, but it was so dark, she didn't even recognize him. And she thought he was a gardener, and she spoke to him, and she had already realized the body was gone. And anyway, and it was the Messiah standing there, and she thought it was a caretaker for the I guess that would be called the graveyard where he was. And anyway, so it was still dark. So it was in this period of time right here. And also, real quickly, I had room to put it here, but this risen is Greek Strong's number 450. It didn't mean he rose to the Father. It doesn't mean resurrected. It means he simply stood up. So when he got breath back into his body, he simply stood up. So he stood up before the new day began on the 16th. So he had already stood up. That's where he was able to meet Mary in that 1 hour time period, and early in that 1 hour time period, because it says very early in the morning. And then here it says, as it began to grow light too. So that means early in the morning. So it begins to grow light. And then early again, we got the highlighted in green. That basically early just means very early in the morning. That early means began to grow light too. So again, guys, the witnesses are right in front of us inside the Word, in the Scriptures. And, of course, you need etymology and Strong's Concordance to help us study it out. But it's right there. It's right there for us for the taking. All right, here's some more. We got Luke 24:1. Now upon the first of the sea night. Now upon the first of the sea night. Again, that would be right here. First of the sea night. This is the first sea night. This is number 1 of the 7 nights of the sea nights. Very early in the morning. So the same as the previous verses, very early in the morning. So that would be that probably an hour before the sun rose, right there. They came into the sepulchre, bringing the spices which they had prepared, and certain with them. So that others is not there. But anyway, you get the gist of what it's talking about. But real quickly, as you see, bring the spices which they had prepared. So remember, they went at the end of their Sabbath on the 15th. They went probably right after it and went and bought spices. Okay, because you can do that if it's not the Sabbath. You can do commerce at that point in time. So that's when they went and bought their spices, and they probably spent part of that night preparing them, and then they got up early in the morning and came here, and that's when Mary got to see the Messiah. Then we got John 20 verse 1. The first of the sea night cometh Mary Magdalene early. So again, very early in the morning. They're basically the same thing. When it was yet dark. So that's telling you it's very early. So there's a period of time you can see the sun in the east, but it's dark. I mean, you're not going to be able to read a newspaper or anything at that time. Only probably at civil twilight, where you've got enough daylight that you can actually read a newspaper at that point in time. But anyway, again, this verse would point you right here about an hour before sunrise, based on where my location is in Jerusalem. It might be a little bit different. I haven't taken a look at it. I didn't feel it was necessary for this study. I just felt this sea night was so important that we'll line all these verses up and show the folks that are keeping Sunday. They believe Sunday is the first day of the week, which on the Gregorian calendar is, but that Gregorian calendar is straight out of Rome. And that's a pagan place there, guys. It's straight up pagan. It's so anyway, come out of it if you can. I mean, really, come out of it. I pray that you can. But John 20:19, then the same day at evening, being first of the sea night, when the doors were shut where the disciples were assembled for fear of the Jews, came Yahushua and stood in the midst and said unto them. So, and he said, peace unto you. So B is not there. Peace unto you. All right. Again, you look up the interlinear for all these brackets there and see which words were added in later for that. Interlinear on BibleHub.com. It's an awesome way to study. But day, then the same day. So that was perplexing to me initially when I saw that. I said, okay, it does have day there. So day is Greek Strong's number 2250. But it means it's equal to literally the time space between dawn and dark. So that would be the time space between here and here, before it turns evening and after morning, and then before it gets to evening, it would be that time space there. But then it says at evening, and then I got perplexed there. I said, uh-oh. I said, what's going on? Is the scripture going to contradict themselves? Well, when you look up that Strong's number, it's Greek 3798. Evening is equal to afternoon. So it was just on this side, right before it was evening. I would say it was probably um, you know, probably mid-afternoon to later, maybe a couple hours before sundown, maybe 3 hours before sundown, right in this area right here. Well, it would have been on this day. I'm sorry. Again, I'm on the wrong day, but it would have been on the 16th day, which then that same day at evening. So it's talking about, he, if you remember, he walked along during the day after he had, after morning was over and the new day began. He met a couple disciples and walked with them. And he ended up, eating with them, and then they both ran back and told the 11 that were holed up in Jerusalem that they had seen the Messiah. But anyway, that actually happened uh, during daylight hours. So that's why it says then the same day at evening. So we got to look at all the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. We got to look at all those cross reference, and those stories all come together when you do that. So this would have put right here where the doors were shut. It was daytime period. It was the first day of the work week, and the disciples would have been holed up in there. Okay, but it would have also been part of the first of the sea night. So it would have still, because the second sea night didn't start until then. This would have been the second sea, so it would have been the second of the sea night, but it didn't. It said the first of the sea night, so that's why it would be included right here. So keep in mind, sea nights are nights, but to complete to the next sea night, you have a day in between. So that's why it says that same day at evening, which is afternoon. All right, our last two verses here is Acts 20, verse 7. And upon the first of the week, sea night, upon the first of the sea night, when the disciples came together to break bread, Paul preached unto them, ready to depart on the morrow, and continued his speech until midnight. So I don't know what day. I looked back on it, and it looks like it's possibly this the this part between New Moon Day and here. And the reason I say that is it was right after unleavened bread, which unleavened bread would have ended here. Well, it might have been okay. He sailed for 5 days, and then he abode with them 7 days, and then it gives the sea night word here. So sea night, if he had the end of a Passover week is here, then there had been a Sabbath here. He traveled 5 days, and then it would have been on the next week. So it probably, just at this point in time, without going any further, it's probably happened right here. He it was at that night on that first sea night, first of the sea nights, and he started preaching here, breaking bread and preaching, and he got to the middle of the night, which is midnight, and then if you remember the story, someone fell out of the window, and then he went down and brought him back to life, and then they ended up staying till morning. And so, Paul was going to, take off on the morrow, which the morrow would have been the first day of the work week, which would have been here. So that's what it was talking about. So Paul, they basically stayed up all night. They pulled an all-nighter, which is easy to do when you get in the scriptures and you're around a lot of people that enjoy studying. It's easy to do an all-nighter with that. So there's Acts 27. Then the last verse we're going to cover, 1 Corinthians 16:2. Upon the first of the sea night, let every one of you lay by him in store as hath prospered him, that there be no gatherings when I come. So again, I don't know exactly what sea night this would have been, but it would have been somewhere. First sea night would have been either during this week, or during this week, or during this week. That's where the first sea night would have been. And so anyway, there's a study, the sea night. If you really liked it, give me a thumbs up. If you don't like it or you saw fault with it, you know, you give me a thumbs down, but if you do give me a thumbs down, please put a comment in there and give me, you know, the scripture where I went wrong, or where I'm being led astray in any way. I'm trying to stay all as much scriptural and historical and etymological, and stay in the definitions of the words and such as much as I can. So, but you know, I've been wrong before. So if you do give me a thumbs down, that's cool. Just please leave me a comment and give me some evidence for what you're trying to sharpen my face with. And also, please share with your friends. If you got some Sunday keepers out there, which that's most of the world that goes to church, they keep Sunday. And the Church of Christ, one of the churches, their whole reasoning for keeping Sunday is based on those some of those scriptures where it says on the first of the week, on the first of the Senate, and they've never studied it out, obviously, and you know, regrettably, most of your mainstream Christianity has or been sold a sack of goods from Rome. They're being able to buy and sell because they've taken the mark of Rome just by basically keeping their calendar and keeping their pagan religions that Rome celebrates. Rome celebrates Christmas. Rome celebrates Easter. And none of the scriptures talks about Good Friday. None of the scriptures talks about Easter. None of the scriptures talks about celebrating the birth of the Messiah. Although I know when he was born, but it definitely wasn't in December during the time when Mithras was born. But please share this with people that you might see that might get some value out of it. Please subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Man, this has been a great study. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I started early this morning. I got up before the sun came up. I was so excited to get started, and I even tried to take a nap, and I couldn't go to sleep taking a nap because I was so excited about finding this CNAT. And so I'm sure there's other folks that have this knowledge out there. Nobody's ever shared this with me, and so this was really a learning portion for me. So I'm going to give all praise to Yah. And how I do that, I give them a big old hallelujah. And of course, hallelujah indeed. So y'all have a great night, and we'll see you on the next one.